By now. I'd like to welcome you. My name is Celestine Bloomfield, and tonight you are at the Indy Story Slam presented by Freetown Village and Storytelling Arts of Indiana and sponsored by Maestro Organizing and our media partner, WFYI. Yay! Well, we still got them. Our theme tonight is hobbies. Now, this is a broad interpretation. And many of you have come here tonight thinking, I don't have a story. But let me tell you how this works. You are among your friends, your family, and what happens is you're going to hear somebody tell a story, you go, oh, that happened to me. And then you're going to see Samantha, and she's going to give you a slip, and you're going to fill it out, and it will be put into the lime green basket. And we might pull your name out for you to tell us that story. Because I've had many hobbies. Some of them I can't speak about. Now, this must be a true story, but I won't know unless your nose starts to grow. It should be told in first person. It should be no longer than 5 minutes in length. And it should be based on tonight's theme. And if you have notes on your phone like I have for my MC notes, we're going to take your phone away from you. It must come from your brain and your heart. Now, I might want to tell you there are about 6 chairs still up there up front if you want to come a little closer. You're entitled, because I'll be sitting down here eating this food that just came hot as the show begins. Now, I would like to begin this show by thanking our judges. You don't know who they are or where they are, and we won't tell you. But thank you. I'd like to thank Shannon for making me look good on TV.
Of course.
And everything you saw tonight, thank you, Samantha. I have my glasses on. It's Greg here. I don't see him. He keeps playing hooky. We're going to call him up. Tonight's theme, hobbies. I don't see why we should waste our time. We got a lot of people here. We're going to have a lot of stories. You know, I have people in my life who are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs. And I keep telling them to do the right thing. And then when they ask me, what is the right thing? I got a problem. So I keep telling them, find a hobby. You need a hobby. Now, some people, the hobby has got to be cheap. Some people, you have to tell them what their hobby is and get them started. But we're going to hear tonight about a whole bunch of hobbies. And our first teller is Frances Whitner. She's known, but she's a great teller.
This is about the lessons here or whatever.
One other thing, we have a timekeeper. Yes. Now your story might be longer than 5 minutes. Go ahead, but we're not gonna count. So when you see, raise your hand. It was up here. Here's our official timekeeper. When you see him, he's not being annoying. He's like, you know, you got 1 more minute.
I have several hobbies. One is doing crossword puzzles. I just enjoy figuring them out. My second hobby is swimming, especially in the summertime. Oh, that is so much fun. But my main hobby is cooking. I think I learned that hobby from watching my mother cook. She was a very good cook. And I would stand in the kitchen and watch her as she prepared food and enjoy eating the foods at dinner and see her take things out of the refrigerator and the stove that she had prepared. And I learned a whole lot. When I was in high school, I took a special course designed just for seniors. It was called Home Ec Special. And for Home Ec Special, we were to prepare 4 different meals. One was a breakfast, one was a very simple lunch. Third, a more elegant lunch. And fourth, a dinner. I did just fine preparing the first 3. When it came to preparing the dinner, Miss Good, who was our instructor, told me, now, Francis, I want for you to be in charge of preparing the sweet potatoes. All right, I said. She said, now, here is a can of sweet potatoes that you are to use. And there were some instructions in a recipe that each of us was given to use for what we were preparing. So I thought, well, I've watched Mama all these years. I know how to prepare these things, but I'll read the instructions. So I read them over quickly. Not precisely, just quickly, because I already knew how to do things. So I fixed the oranges. I took out the oranges and mashed them up to use the orange juice. I cleaned out the rest of the oranges, and then I had to fix the sweet potatoes. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to mash up these sweet potatoes. So I just took the lid off the sweet potatoes and mashed them up. And what I ended up with was not just sweet potatoes that were a little softer. I ended up with sweet potato mush because I hadn't taken out the liquid that was around the sweet potato. I hadn't read the instructions on the back that said pour out liquid first. So what happened on eating day? Well, everybody put the things they had prepared on the table, and Miss Good made me put the empty orange shells, the half in which I was supposed to put those sweet potatoes for us to eat. And we all went to the table and we were all sitting around, and I could just see everybody staring at me and thinking we could have had sweet potatoes. But you didn't read the instructions. And I just knew they all made a face at me. I was mortified. But I did learn something important that day. If you are fixing something, especially if it is new, read the instructions on the recipe you're preparing, but also on the back of the can.
Reminds me of the time I started cooking. Now, my mother was a great cook. That really was her hobby. But her idea of you helping in the kitchen was like, cleaning up, peeling the potatoes, the grunt work. So I started cooking when my mother left them. And I would read the recipes on the back of the Domino sugar bag or the confectionery sugar box, and I would make something. And I remember making a cake once. Cake mixers were new, to let you know how old I am. And I followed the directions, but the cake started to bubble in the middle of the pan while it was baking in the oven. And so I fed it to my brothers because I always fed them my mistakes. And they ate it all up. But then I made a really good devil's food cake one time all by myself. And then I started worrying, what is my mother going to say when she gets home? And I've used up all her ingredients. So what happened was I made my brothers eat it all up. And do you know? They told her anyway. I still love them. I want you to know that next month, we're going to be at the Aristocrat Pub and Restaurant at 52nd and College. And the topic will be phobias, so start thinking about it now. I left my lime green basket. I mixed it, Francis, I mixed them up. I know when you said, oh no, I'm first, but you did a great job. But right now, Stanley. Good morning. Come on up. You know, look at that mug. And tell us a story.
Yes, okay.
You weren't ready?
At the time.
We'll keep time.
Well, hello everyone. I grew up in Haiti and we didn't have a lot of hobbies. So we had to go to school, and then after school, you did homework. And then maybe on weekends, we played soccer in the streets. We also played marbles with our friends. And occasionally we would get into fights with kids in the neighborhood. I was 17 years old, and my favorite uncle, God rest his soul, his name was Jean-Marie. And Jean-Marie was the coolest guy I knew. He would come riding on his red Honda CB 750 Sport. For those of you who don't know, that's a classic motorcycle. And he'd come riding on that motorcycle, and I would be mesmerized. Jean-Marie was an engineer, so he had a white pickup truck that he used to go to work, but his motorcycle was his pride and joy, and we called it the Moto. And at 17 years old, I walked pretty much everywhere I went. My sister and I would walk a half an hour to school in the morning. And that was pleasant enough. It was cool. And we would hear the street vendors with their jingles. And that was pleasant. But on the way back, because we went to school the whole day, and so in the afternoon, like around 3, when we were heading back home, in the heat of the day, climbing that steep hill to my grandmother's house was torture. I cursed that hill every day. And I thought of one day I'll be able to have my uncle's motorcycle. So I got to have a conversation with him. And I said, if I had enough money, would you sell it to me? And he said, yeah, sure. Sure, I'd sell it to you. And so that summer, I got to go to New York to spend the summer there. And my mother, unfortunately, had passed away the previous year. So I was still grieving, but very excited to be able to get a part-time job during the summer and earn enough money to buy my uncle's motorcycle. So my aunt got me a job working at a hair salon. And so from 8:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday, I was weaving hair on a wooden stick. My fingers were blistered, my hands were tired, but I kept telling myself, I'm one paycheck closer to buying that motorcycle. And then at the end of the summer, I had made enough money, I think about $800. So I go to my uncle and I said, hey, I've got the money. I'm ready to buy your motorcycle. And he says, I was kidding. I could never. He said, I could never let you ride this motorcycle. It'd be irresponsible of me to do that. You'd kill yourself. But now as an adult, I see the wisdom in what he was saying. I was a kid, I was 17. But at the time, it really broke my heart.
Aw.
I was shattered. And so I went to my grandmother, and she was my confidant. I told her everything. And she said, well, what are you going to do with the money now? I said, well, I don't know because I've been working all this time to buy the motorcycle. And she said, well, it would really be a pity if you wasted it on something. So why don't you lend it to me and I'll keep it for you? And she was right. The money was, I never wasted it because she kept it and I never saw it again. And so I must have been traumatized because last year I told my wife, we had just moved from Montreal. I said, I'm going to take the motorcycle riding course, safety course. I'm going to work extra on weekends and earn some money, and I'm going to buy a motorcycle. And she said, okay. And so in March, I had enough money. I passed the course. And so I bought a V7 Classic Moto Guzzi. I'm on that thing every day, as much as I can. And so some people would call it a hobby. I think it's a reckoning for me.
That was good.
That's good.
I thought you were gonna say your wife said, "Oh no, you not."
That's not the kind of wife she is.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful. Listen, you might want to know what's coming up next. I mean, it's September, but sure enough, October will be here before we can blink. And in October, you'll want to know that Storytelling Arts is presenting Spooky Stories Saturday, October 11th at 8 p.m. at the Phoenix Theater Cultural Center. It's only one night, so don't mess up. Don't skip it. Now, our featured artists will be Bob Sander, Leandra Radford, Deborah Asante, Deborah Gullery, Dave Matlick, and Josh Holman. Great tellers. Don't miss it. You might also want to know that Frank Museal's Emerging Stories, featuring Brenda Johnson, will be on, how come the date is not in? In November. I'll be back with that. In other words, I saw this little bitty thing that just like throw it in here. I just really wanted to pull it up and call that name out of spite. But that's all right. Joe, Ibata, why are you?
So I went to Indiana State University for my undergrad and my grad experience. And during my 8 years over there, I quickly learned that there really isn't much to do on the weekends. So much so that if you go there on Fridays, even to this day at 2 p.m., you see everyone starting to scatter like roaches. They're either going to IU and Purdue to party it up or they're exploring some big city. So during my senior year of college, I was with a couple of fraternity brothers. And fraternity brothers I didn't really hang out with, but they were the only ones left on campus. So we ended up getting dinner, and one of them was Tommy, the other is Donovan. Tommy was telling me that his dad just got a beer brewing kit. And he was wondering if we wanted to try our hand at brewing beer the next day. And so I was like, why not? All I've had was PBR and Natty Light at that point. So I wanted to try something new. And so we came to Indianapolis, went to the home brewing shop here on 65th and Benford Boulevard, Great Fermentations. And we ended up getting a kit for Irish Red Ale. And then back to the Hote, went to the fraternity house, set up shop right in front of the fraternity house with a big giant turkey burner, stock pot, and our brand new paddle that we had with us. Now, we started messing up from the beginning. Turkey burner was too high, the stock pot was too thin, and so when we poured in that liquid extract into the water, we scorched it almost immediately. But we kept on persevering. We had to see it through. We had a couple of boilovers And the yeast and hops that we were supposed to be keeping in the refrigerator was in the sun. The entire time. So transferred everything into the primary fermenter, and then 2 weeks later into the secondary fermenter, and then finally it was it's bottling day. We were so excited. We were invited the rest of our fraternity brothers, our significant others over, and so we had the first taste, got that bottle cap off, and it was the worst beer we ever had. And so other people would have been deterred, being like, okay, we wasted our money, kind of cut our losses. But with us, we kept on going at it. And so we went back to the homebrew shop and realized the rookie mistakes we made. We probably had about 4 or 5 more brew sessions before graduation. But then when we went off our separate ways, we kept on brewing. And so now Tommy is the head brewer over at Grand Junction in Westfield. Donovan is the head brewer over at Terre Haute Brewing Company. And so for me, whenever I'm not firefighting, I'm the head brewer over at Books and Brews. And so even though we're brewing commercially, we still like to step into each other's brew days, give each other pointers, provide samples. But for me, especially at home, I still like to have my own brew system. And so when I'm at home, I fire up the smoker, fire up my electric brew system, no more scorching. And we just try out a beer that I just made, sit back, reminisce on that terrible beer that I had, and love the hobby that I made for myself, and just enjoy another one.
I already forgot.
Say what?
Where does he work again? Books and Brews. Books and Brews.
Listen,
I didn't know it was still open.
that was fantastic.
I
Our
didn't know it
hops
was still
can
open.
become a job. Your livelihood. That's wonderful.
Yep.
I told you I was gonna look and see what the actual date was, but I didn't.
I can help you. What is it?
It's, November's American Story, November 9th. Okay. 4 p.m. And it's at 4 p.m. And her topic is Aging Reimagined. And Brenda invites you to see growing older as a bold, beautiful evolution with warmth, humor, and a smile. I need to reimagine something right now. Because the reality is about to kill me. You might want to know that Freetown Village is still hosting conversations in Indiana's African American history. Tomorrow, September 18th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Indiana Landmark Center. It's a free event. We'd like for you to do an online registration, please. Our presenter, Renee Thomas, will present a historical overview of the remarkable African American experience at Purdue University. The presentation will introduce you to notable alumni and cultural landmarks on campus from 1894 to 2021. So that sounds like a great topic. But I'm going to put you to my lime green basket. I'm going to pull out another name. And the person who's telling the next story about hobbies, No Bewley.
So, hello. Is it on? Yes. Hey, so 50 years ago, about this time, I wanted to learn to juggle. So I took empty beer cans and I stood in my living room and threw them up in the air for about a week, spending more time picking them up than anything else. And then I found a book, and the book said, Juggling for the Complete Klutz. And so I bought it. And I took the bean bags out of their sack, and within 15 minutes, I could juggle. I honestly could juggle. And from there, I just started buying stuff. The more things you could buy that you could juggle, the better. And I was an elementary physical education teacher, so equipment was no problem. I could find all kinds of things to try to juggle. And I did. I juggled at all kinds of different times. I found the weirdest times to juggle, according to friends. I would juggle at stoplights. So I drove through Indianapolis. And at times people would look over at me and go, "Oh." So I thought I was getting pretty good. So I was teaching kids in my elementary school to juggle. We formed a juggling club. I could get equipment from everywhere. Did you know tennis clubs don't use the balls that the people finish playing? So if you go say to a tennis manager, how many tennis balls could you give me? He said, take this laundry basket. And so I got all the tennis balls. And then I would stop at grocery stores and say, can I have some of your plastic bags? And they would hand me a whole thing of hundreds of plastic bags. So use those to juggle instead of scarves. So at that time, I was teaching or trying to teach everybody I met. And some people who just happened to walk close to me and tried to teach them to juggle. Now, I got married. My wife's father had taught her older brother and her younger brother to juggle. Not her. I don't know why, but he said she couldn't learn. I taught her to juggle. I taught both of my kids to juggle. I taught all of my kids' friends to juggle. I taught my daughter-in-law, my son-in-law to juggle. I taught people I met at the YMCA to juggle. I didn't know their names. And I had a wonderful time. I bought books to learn new tricks. And what people always say to you is, oh, you can juggle 3. How about 4? And you think, okay, there's 4. How about 5? I'm going, try 5. How about 6? And it's like, this is not going to end. It's not going to end. You're just going to ask me how many more I can juggle. So I ended up teaching so many people to juggle, and I loved every minute of it. I took my juggling bag out in my backyard last night and pulled out all this 50-year-old stuff from that, and I noticed that I could still juggle most of the things, some of them not so well. But I had a good time in the backyard. And my favorite time to juggle now at my age is when the tea is steeping. I get out my juggling balls, and for 3 minutes, I do my juggling routine. And now I have a niece that I taught to juggle who has a son who's 9 years old. And we were at a place like this with couches and things. And he said, I want to learn to juggle. And I said, okay, but I don't have anything to teach you with. He went to a restaurant, got 3 packets for creamers and said, teach me to juggle now. I just got a picture of him with a cowboy hat juggling. Just came in this week. So it's moved on to another generation. Your hobby can spread. Thank you.
No, you know what I was thinking about, right? I feel we need a demonstration.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not gonna forget. You might want to know about Crown Hill Homeschool Day. That's coming up Wednesday, September 24th. from 10 to 2 p.m. at Crown Hill Cemetery. Now, the Crown Hill Foundation hosts the annual Homeschool Day for students who will discover, explore, and experience Crown Hill through various educational stations led by their staff. They will also interact with the Benjamin Harrison Presidential Site, Indiana Landmarks, Indiana Historical Society, DNR's Department of Forestry, their interactive Woods on Wheels, and their popular heritage historical tours. They give Civil War reenactments, surgery reenactments, I'm sorry. Don't want y'all to go out there with the bayonets. They have monarch butterfly activities. You need to go. Okay? And the Freetown Village Singers will be there from 10:30 to 11:30. Actually, they have 3 performances, 10:30 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and 12:30 p.m. And Reverend Strong will be presenting at 11, 12, and 1. A good time will be had by all. See, I'm giving my judges enough time to do their calculations and their adaptations and their scoring from those hilarious stories we just heard. But right now, our next teller is Jen Cleese.
Hi. I wouldn't say I have a hobby necessarily, unless you consider binge watching British murder mysteries a hobby. But I was thinking that back in my 20s, I did have an interesting hobby of sorts. I really enjoyed coming up with costumes, especially Halloween costumes. And not to toot my own horn, but toot toot, I was really good at Halloween costumes. If you happen to attend the Rathskellers 2002 Halloween party, you might remember me. I was the sun maid. You know this lady, she's the woman on the box of the raisins. So I had a huge red bonnet and a basket of real green grapes. And my favorite part was this huge sun that I had strapped on my back, and I perfected my pose. And that night I beat out a sexy pirate to win first place. I'm so proud of myself. But my hobby came to an abrupt end when I went to grad school in Pittsburgh. I'd gone there to get an advanced degree in creative writing. And one of my first courses was a fiction workshop in which we read and critiqued one another's stories. So the first time our class met, my professor was going through the syllabus, and she pointed out that our class met 2 days before Halloween. And she said Halloween was her favorite holiday, and that she was going to be in costume that night, and that all of us should come in costume too. So as you can imagine, I went home and started planning. Now, 2 days before Halloween arrives, and I am so excited. I'm the first one to class, which never happened. And I'm sitting there. Here's where I'm going to tell you what I was wearing. I was dressed up as a Christmas tree. So I had taken 3 huge pieces of green felt. One was the skirt, one was a cape, and then the other one was this pointed hat on which perched this porcelain angel holding a candle. And I had sewn over 100 ornaments onto the felt, and I had garland wrapped around me. I wore brown knee-high socks with red shoes, and I had wrapped up some empty boxes in Christmas wrapping paper and taped them all around my ankles. And then I had taken 3 strings of battery-operated Christmas lights and wrapped them around me. They blinked. This was going to be my finest moment. So I'm sitting there in class, and the first of my classmates walks in, and she's not wearing a costume. And I felt so bad for her, because nothing is worse than being the only one not in costume at a costume party, right? Well, so I thought. Turns out there is something worse. Student after student come through the door, all in street clothes. And under all that green felt, I start to sweat. And the worst part, I think, was that we didn't really know one another, so no one was making fun of me. People acted like I wasn't sitting there dressed up like a Christmas tree. And I tried to act normal too. And not a single classmate shows up wearing costume. And we're all sitting there waiting for my professor, and I am telling myself, at least I am saving her the embarrassment of being the only one in costume tonight. And then she walks in wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. And she just looked at me and smiled and said, "Oh, nice costume. I was gonna dress up, but eh."
Wow.
Then our 2-hour class started. And I sat there blinking because I would have had to undress entirely to access the batteries. Sitting on some very ill-placed ornaments that were just a physical reminder to me of how I looked that whole evening. And I think even worse than sitting through that 2-hour class was the walk back to my car in the dark, blinking, knowing that I was the only one in Pittsburgh dressed up like Christmas for Halloween 2 days before Halloween. And that was 20 years ago. That was the last time I've ever dressed up for Halloween. And it's also the last time I had a hobby.
I need to call him right now. All right. I can imagine though. I can see the parking lot. I can see you walking through the parking lot. I can see you blinking. That's great. That's great. Listen, there's some chairs up here. I can move this back. But I want you to know. You rummage through my lime green basket. Somebody changed their mind. No. Uh-oh. Samantha Powers is the next person on my list.
Yes.
Shannon did the no, I was kidding.
Oh, I didn't. No.
So in my spare time, I hunt. I am a hunter. Now I know you're looking at me and you're like, "Psh," but I promise you, you drop me in any thrift store and I will hunt you the deal of a lifetime. Okay? So this secondhand shopping love of mine started when I was a young kid and I would go to garage sales with my grandma every Friday morning. Since then, it has blossomed into garage sales, estate sales, thrift stores, marketplace, you name it. But my favorite is the Goodwill outlet. Now, if you are not familiar with the Goodwill outlet, I want you to imagine all of the leftovers from the Goodwills across central Indiana, right? Some real prizes, okay? Thrown into bins. And then, like a battle scene in a movie, people just charging to dig for the treasure of their lifetime. So every Saturday, I put on my good luck garage sale shirt, as my husband has coined it, get in the car, get a Lucky Diet Coke on the way from McDonald's, and I head to the Goodwill outlet to spend a few hours without kids, without distractions, just me and the thrill of the hunt. So one morning in particular, I happened to walk over to the bins that contain toys and like plastic organizers, furniture, that kind of stuff, not just clothes, which is not usually my thing, but I thought I'd give it a go. I look into one of the bins and I noticed there are quite a few puzzles lying around from probably about the 70s or 80s, and I think they're pretty cool. I noticed one is like Bert and Ernie, but they look a little creepy, a little trippy. I'm like, eh. So I keep looking, I keep digging, and I come across some like wooden backing boards of old puzzles. And one of them kind of intrigues me because I think it says Disney, and I'm like, and I toss it because there's no pieces. and then I find a bumblebee. And although I'm not a huge Winnie the Pooh fan, I am a Disney fan. And I see this bee and I'm on it. I'm like, I'm on the hunt for this Winnie the Pooh puzzle. And I start digging and I'm digging and I find a foot and I'm digging and I find another bumblebee. I'm like, this is it. I find his face and you would have thought that was my Super Bowl. Before I know it, people are kind of, walking around and stopping. And again, I go pretty frequently. So people kind of know me and this is not usually my typical behavior. And all of a sudden, a couple of people start to stand and watch to see what I'm trying to gather and if it's good or not. A couple of people actually start to try and help me out. I'm like, at this point, I'm like feet in the air, digging in this giant rolling plastic bin, looking for these puzzle pieces, and I'm finding them. And it's hot in there. I mean, this is back in like July. It's hot. I'm sweating, but I don't care because I'm going to find this puzzle. Eventually people start cheering me on. So I'm telling you, I'm like, yes, I am your leader and I'm here now and we are gonna do this. Unfortunately though, lunchtime is approaching, which means nap time is approaching, which means I need to go home and help my husband get the children down. So I say, okay, they're gonna rotate bins in a second. My hopes and dreams in this Winnie the Pooh puzzle have just gone and everyone kind of lets out this collective, and I said, yeah, I know. Let you down. And I set the puzzle on the ground for anyone else who maybe wants to take up this challenge. And I head to the checkout. I get in my car and I look in the mirror and I have to call my mother because there are tears in my eyes from laughing so hard. That lucky t-shirt I was telling you about has Winnie the Pooh on it. These people thought they weren't cheering for me because I was finding, some Antique Roadshow champion. They were cheering for me because they thought I was a 36-year-old obsessed with music.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
But they were there for the cause. Listen, there's still some chairs up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. I take that lie back. I do have a hobby. I collect elephants. And if you come to my house, there are elephants everywhere. And when I worked in an elementary school, I had elephants everywhere. And people started giving me elephants for Christmas, for Teacher Appreciation Days, that, and pencil Cavassier. That's another story. But I started collecting elephants because I had to do a theater exercise and you had to be an animal. And my elephant was my choice. And I bought stuffed elephants. I think I had one that had my school mascot or logo on it. And my mother had a dog at home named Cindy. Actually, it's shortened for Cinderella Bloomfield. And she would take my stuffed elephants home to give to Cindy to play with. And when I would go visit, I would look and see pieces of my elephant all over the living room floor. So it took them quite a while to understand that this was a serious endeavor of mine. So I have elephant earrings, elephant necklaces, elephant statues all through the house. And kids usually come over. And they start walking around. And they start counting. And they go downstairs and they count some more. And I don't have the heart to tell them that I have about 5 boxes in the garage still packed from when I was a teacher. So I do have a hobby. I forgot about that. But I'm going to reach in my lime green basket. And this time, Chap Flack is going to tell us a story.
I don't recall ever deciding that wrenching on a car ought to be a hobby. But as a young teen, I had a great interest in having a car. And so when my mom and dad pointed to the one that the weeds were sort of growing into as it took up space in the backyard. And they said, you can have that for $1 if you think you can get it back on the road. I gained a hobby that day. And it was back on the road by the year I could get my learner's permit. And I drove that car until a couple of years after college. By that time, I'd had some paychecks under my belt, and I'd finally gone and splurged and bought a new battery for it, which for the longest time, it just seemed like an extravagance when all I had to do if it didn't start when I turned the key was just get out, give a little shove down the road, jump in, pop the clutch, and start it that way. And I was an old hand at that by the end of high school, which is when my music teacher gave me this awesome gift. She gave me 2 tickets to a touring company of the Metropolitan Opera appearing in Detroit. And I took my 2 tickets and I picked up the phone and I called Melanie Webster, who went to a different school nearby. We knew through each other through some overlapping friends. And I knew she played the flute. And I figured for a show called The Magic Flute, that might work in my favor. And so on the day, I go to her home and meet the family and usher Melanie and her electric blue long dress into my chariot. And I turn the key and it starts. And so we're on our way toward downtown, about a half-hour drive, during which the rain begins. Not a gentle rain, not a shower. This is like pouring down sheets of rain, rolling down the expressway like river rapids. And when we come sloshing up the exit ramp up to street level downtown, the nearest lot with vacancies to park in is about 2 blocks from the venue. And this is where, if I had been raised with a stricter notion of manners, maybe I would have stopped at the venue and let her off under the awning. And if she had been raised that way, maybe she would have seemed more put out that I didn't think of that. But as it happened, we just parked the car and we both got out and we walked 2 blocks, laughing ourselves silly through this pouring down rain and sauntered casually into the lobby. Where mingling with other opera goers, we learned just how many times its own weight in water that electric blue long dress could carry. It had a lowest point of the hem in back toward the center, and the water would not stop pouring from that point, as if she had a faucet there. And some quick-thinking, elegant ladies surrounded her and whisked her off to the ladies' room. Nobody whisked me off to the men's room, but I found it myself and stood there on one foot and then on the other foot over the floor drain while I took off every stitch that I had on to wring every piece individually over the floor drain, maintaining my cheerful disposition by supposing she was doing the same, and then put everything back on. We reconnected in the lobby and found our seats. And at intermission, we walked around a lot, which helped. And by the time the next act started, we could shift in our seats without making squelching noises. And by the time it was over, we were dry. The rain had ceased. We went back out to my car. I turned the key. It started. We stopped for a late snack on the way home, got back in the car. It started, took her home. Walked her to the front door, said goodnight, got back in my car, turned the key, hopped out, shoved it down her driveway, and drove home.
Go ahead. You can just ask anytime.
Thank you. See, I told you. This is how it works. This lime green basket is magical. People thought I was putting names in myself, but no, that's not what's happening. Because one good story deserves another. Listen, I didn't tell you to go online and register, but you should at freetown.org. Is it Freetown or Freetown Village? Freetown, same, okay. Listen. Freetown Village is one of the many partners for the 27th Annual Spirit of Freedom, a celebration of the many thousands of African Americans who fought during the Civil War. The United States colored troops represented 1/10 of the Union Army and is a little known fact of our Civil War history. So during the Spirit of Freedom, which is Thursday, October 2nd, from 10:45 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the American Legion Mall, you can see up to 800 5th and 6th grade Indianapolis Public School students rotating between 3 stages at the American Legion Mall, as there will be Civil War reenactors, singers, and other important African Americans who had a major impact upon the outcome of the Civil War. And it's free.
We like free.
You like free. Okay. I don't know if you have to pretend like you're a 5th or 6th grader, but we'll see. But our next teller is Rita Beck.
I understand we are not supposed to have props, so judges, that's okay. I brought props because it's gonna be funny. How many have hobbies? Knit, walk, garden, lots of things. There's as many hobbies as there are people, right? If you don't have a hobby, it might be time to get one. Stephen King said, in polite society, we call our obsessions hobbies. So you can call yours anything you wish. I don't understand that. I think hobbies are good for us. They're good for our mental health. They help us relax. They help us with our creativity, and they keep us from deadly boredom, right? So if you don't have a hobby, you might try things like skydiving. How about mountain climbing? No? Okay. Cave exploring? No. Okay. Some of the most dull things in the world can also be called hobbies. Ant farming? Anybody? No. Okay, no ant farming. There's another thing that could be very interesting. They call it drain sewer cover exploration. Yeah, I guess there's some really cool designs on sewer covers, but yeah, okay, chap, you tell us about that. I'm not gonna try it. I'm not gonna try. There's also something called ironing. It is something besides an ancient housewife ritual. People take their iron and their ironing boards to all these locations. Can you imagine ironing on the side of a cliff? No. Can you imagine ironing on a surfboard? No. How about when you're scuba diving? All I can think is they must have very, very long extension cords to make that work. At any rate, I started having hobbies when I retired to keep my mind sharp and my hands busy. We all know that idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? That was drilled into us. Now, I am now on hobby number 2,453, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Dave Barry has said that there's a fine line between hobby and mental illness. I really don't know what he meant by that. I started making hot people use my scrap fabric and my costume jewelry. Now, she's adorable, but I don't know what they mean when they say that hobbies can become obsessions. Why would anybody think that? Because I don't understand why oh, look, she lost her glasses. She lost her glasses. But there's just no way that anyone says with hobby. I don't get it. It's for relaxation. It's for acuity. Oh my God. I see no reason why this should become an obsession. If anybody wants to become obsessed with this, let me know. I have a lot of jewelry. I have a lot of scrap fabric that we could also get together and become obsessed with our hobbies. If you don't have one, get one. It's good relaxation. Life is short. Live it up. Get out of your comfort zone. Push your boundaries. Try something different. Get a hobby.
Now, did you bring these to sale?
I'll have a stand right on.
I feel like there should be a fest.
I'll get these out of your way.
I feel like there should be a philosophy.
Does anybody have any glue?
I left that in my other bag.
I think a true crafter would have had some glue with them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are gorgeous. That's okay.
There's.
I love it.
I take Venmo.
Oh, that's hilarious. Seriously, I had my kids paint flower pots once. I spent a lot of money on flower pots and made them decorate them. And we sold them at our, I think Harvest Hoopla or Spring Clean. And we sold most of them, but I still have some of those pots in my house in the garage.
With the
That's hilarious. With the elephants, yeah. Okay. I'm reaching into my lime green basket. I pulled out another name. Tracy Wynn.
Oh my goodness, how will I pass that? Jeez.
Tracy, you don't got.
Oh, don't worry. Okay. I like to have a microphone, but you know, I like. Years ago, let's say a few generations back, when roller skating was the craze, everybody was roller skating. And my father asked us if we wanted to learn how to skate. And we said, yes, we want to learn how to skate. And so every Friday in my neighborhood, a man by the name of Reverend Shine, and yes, he was a real reverend. He had a real church on the real corner. And he had a school bus, a big school bus that he would take us skating. All the kids in the neighborhood. And we knew that in order to get that $3, that it was going to cost us 3 girls to go skating, we had to make sure the house was clean. We didn't do anything bad during the week so we could go skating. And we would always go skating. My older sister's about 5 years older than me, and my younger sister is 2.5 years younger than me. And we would go and go and go, and it was so fun. Now, we didn't have our own skates yet, but finally, my father bought us our skates, and we all had our own skates. Now, I'm going to have to back up to little Tracy. Little Tracy had a problem. Little Tracy, for a long time, could not tell her right from her left when she put on her shoes. So I always had to ask somebody. It was either my older sister or my younger sister. Well, one day we went skating, and that music was going. Oh yeah, everybody, I couldn't wait till I could go around that corner and cross my feet like everybody else on them curves. They was playing all that music, Make Me Yours and all that. And I got out there and I'm just going the normal way because I couldn't really do all of those fancy moves, but I knew one day I would. And I'm out there just skating along. And my older sister would run off with the older kids because she was 5 years older than me. And my younger sister seemed to run off with her friends. So I had nobody to ask when I put on my skates. So I'm out there on the floor just sailing along. And a teenager came up to me and she said, honey, you know your skates are on the wrong feet. I was devastated. I went off the floor immediately. And I sat down and I took off my skates. And I did not put them back on again that night. It was terrible. And this probably went on for a long time. I'd have to ask my younger sister, are they on the right feet? And she'd say yes or no. Tracy, put them on the other feet. And I would change my shoes. So that hobby of skating, I got over it. I learned how to skate. I skated to the point where I only skated backwards. I skated when I was pregnant with my third child. My father told me to go sit down, girl. Make something happen to that baby. And I kept on skating. But I'll never forget that incident when the girl told me my skates were on the wrong feet. Thank you so much.
That's funny. I had a friend who would skate all over town. He never drove his car. He would skate from one end of the city to the other. I'm sure he's doing better. I bet he's not hobbling around right now. Okay. How we doing? You know, one good story leads to another, so I know if it comes to your brain, there's Sam back there. She'll give you a slip of paper. You can fill it out. But right now, Carol, why can't I read this? LaSalle. LaSalle. Come on down.
The theme is hobbies. And when I thought of hobbies that fit our family, there are two things that led to a very long and interesting set of legacies. And I'm going to call this story, Who Would Have Thought? So, starting off, I decided to start a hobby called piano tuning. For a whole summer, I studied how to tune pianos, and I thought it'd be a nice little hobby, income circumstance. And I pursued it, and then I went to Indianapolis at the National Convention. I met this very handsome fellow, and eventually got married. Now, when we went home to my hometown to get married, it's called Penn Yan, New York, which is the county seat, 6,000 people. That's a really small county, farm country. And wouldn't you know it, his mother says, by the way, we have family that were in Penn Yan. Really? So we eventually collected a small ceramic dog. It's one of those King Charles dogs you find beside mantles and all that. And we started doing research. And we followed the family name because it's the only thing we could do. This is a hobby, of course. We're following our ancestry. And we found that the this ancestor, Thomas, was a potter in Penyan, but where else did he work? So we started following. I told my husband, he doesn't sign his word. Follow the brush strokes. So we followed round tip brush strokes from Lyons, New York on the Erie Canal to my hometown, Penyan, which was south of the Erie Canal, also connected to waterways. And then finally, believe it or not, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, following the brush strokes. Perhaps you've all seen false craft Yorktown pattern, which is gray with the blue. Those two tulips were my husband's great, great, great grandfather's original design. Now, those pots are being collected by people all over the country. They go for anywhere from $500 to $30,000. We're talking some serious collecting here. So my husband decided he would start collecting pieces. And he collected from Lyons on the left on our little shelf to Penyan to Harrisburg. Cowden and Wilcox is the Harrisburg connection. Well, in the process of doing our research, of course, we had to visit all these places where he worked, which was kind of hard because the kilns are all gone. But the interesting thing was that we started following the family tree and who went where. And finally, we started trying to figure out who was the one who made that little Cocker Spaniel, Charles, whatever, Spaniel dog. King Charles, thank you. It turns out that Ephraim, original potter was Shem Thomas. Ephraim was his son. When they all moved to Harrisburg, oh yeah, and by the way, he moved to Harrisburg because the guy who bought the Lyons pottery owned the town. He didn't want his designs owned, but he owned them in New York State, so he went to Pennsylvania. Anyway, Ephraim fell in love. He fell in love with a girl from Penyan. Interesting story. So when you connect the story, he went back to Penyan to marry the girl. And the rest of the story and all this hobby between collecting pots and all the rest, 135 years later, there was another bride married in Penyan to a Thomas family person. Romance and a hobby.
You know, I retired in 2012, I would say. It was April 11th. It was a Friday. I remember like it was yesterday. And I remember you stay there long enough, you go through several principals. They come and they go. Some of them good, some of them worse. One had an idea that we should have this time at the end of the day where we should teach kids things that were not on the curriculum. I was the media specialist running the library, so I needed all my extra time, but that's okay. I came up with an idea, and my idea was to make candles. And I had this candle making hobby that I started learning how to make candles when I was in college. And I had the kids save their milk cartons. And then we got enough ice, because the very first candle they made was you put the ice in and the wick, and then you pour the wax in, and after the wax melts, the ice cubes give a shape, and that was it. And the next time they came, they got to tear it apart and take it home. Couldn't burn it at school. So as I go through the boxes and things in my garage and in my office, I'm finding the remnants of a lot of different hobbies. jewelry making. Remember when those iron-on decals started in school? And you could use the laminator, or it wasn't the laminator, it was that hot press thing, to make a shape on a, you make the kids t-shirts, you can make them little tote bags. I was good at every new hobby that came. I was never good at Christmas shopping. But one year I made my assistant a sweatshirt that was green, that had a Christmas tree on it. And I had to put the applique on, and then I had to put the little bulbs through the tree. And she had a battery pack so that the sweatshirt would light up. So I know about those Christmas trees. But right now, I'm going to reach into this lime green basket, and our next teller is Gloria
Danielson.
Danielson. Yes.
One of the perks of growing older is sometimes you get to see things come around full circle. And it wasn't very long ago on this stage, the storytelling art stage, that I told a story about a time in my life when I was 15 and I painted a picture and it was awful. And I was embarrassed. And I believe from that moment on that I did not have a creative bone in my body. So fast forward to about 15 years ago, and I added the hobby of woodworking. And that started out with a class at Mark Adams School of Woodworking, which is right outside of Franklin. And it is a premier arts and crafts school, the whole world. And master craftsmen come from around the world to teach at Mark Adams. So I took a class and I liked it. And I started taking more classes and getting more hobbies: stained glass, leather, metalworking, resin. There were so many, and it all started right there at Mark Adams. And these master craftsmen would walk through and they would say, "Are you having fun? You're on vacation." And honestly, I wasn't having that much fun because my stuff didn't look like their stuff. My stuff didn't look like anybody's stuff. And I wanted it to. So they have a tradition at Mark Adams where once a week, all these masters do a slideshow and they talk about their art and their crafts. And one of them put up this picture of this beautiful table. And he said, "Now this table came about because I wondered what would happen if." And it was suddenly a light bulb like went off in my brain. And I realized that almost all the instructors had said something similar. What would happen if? So those 6 words changed everything for me. It gave me permission to be different. So I started experimenting. I started playing. I started having fun. So about 5 years ago, I added another hobby, blowing glass. Oh, cool. And I worked at it and I got good enough that this spring I took an intermediate glass blowing class. And every day the students would go off and they'd make these beautiful goblets and vases. And I would take my project book up to the instructor and I would say, "Here's my idea." And he would look at my sketches and he'd ask some questions and he'd go, "I have never heard of anybody doing anything like this, but try it." And so at the end of this 5-day class, he would look at my stuff and he said, "You know, you have a very distinctive style and you should definitely keep doing it." So it turns out I have a creative bone in my body after all. Now, I'm not fooling myself. I'm not ever going to be another Dale Chihuly. That's okay, because I like being the Gloria Danielson original.
You know, you made me think about something else. If you come into my kitchen, it's empty. But there is an elephant cookie jar sitting on top of my bread box that I made. I would go faithfully every week all the way across town when I lived way on the west side and go to a ceramics class where I made a set of dishes and I made a lamp and I made a clock. But the only thing I have is that elephant. Sometimes that elephant cookie jar has cookies in it. But let me reach into my lime green basket, pull out a name. And when can you talk into the mic so everybody can hear? Sid Blake, come down.
Good to see you. Thank you. Testing. All right. First of all, shout out to Books and Brews because y'all doing the dang thing up there. And I don't know how I feel about doing this in front of these pop people, but it's gonna be what it's gonna be. My name is Sid Blake, and I am a nerd. My hobby that I'm most passionate about from early age is gaming, playing games, playing tabletop games, role-playing games, card games, all kinds of games. Now, this started because I was born in Santa Cruz, California in 1977. I'm what I would like to call a college brat. Some people are Army brats, I'm a college brat. My father was in college administration, so when we moved because he had taken a new position at a different college. So in Santa Cruz, where I was born, he was a provost at UCSC, University of California, Santa Cruz. I don't remember much about that place, but I'm told that it was one of the last strongholds of hippies. Very liberal, very progressive, very United Nations, very inclusive, wonderful kind of place from that regard. But when we moved in 1984, I was 6 years old, we moved to Tougaloo, Mississippi. Some people say that Dante's Inferno is about the 7 circles of hell. I say he talked about Mississippi. That was a culture shock. As a quick example, the first day I was in school and I heard one of my teachers say y'all when we were lined up in the hallway, I started to laugh because I had never heard y'all before in my life. I thought it was the funniest thing and I got in trouble for that. That let me know I was in a different space. So to help me adjust, my mother in her infinite wisdom one day came home from the bookstore with what has become a pop culture classic. It was a red box of Dungeons and Dragons. Now, in 1984, Dungeons and Dragons was a very controversial thing. It was very much linked to Satanism or any kind of evil thing that you could think of. It was very much despised in mainstream society, very much a niche kind of a thing. And I don't know how many black kids in the United States at the age of 6 and 7 were playing Dungeons and Dragons. I think I was a bit of a unicorn. But regardless of all of that, for whatever reason, I was hooked. Normally with Dungeons and Dragons, you have what's called a dungeon master, who's a bit of a director of the game. And they set up the scenes for the players that are playing the game in this imaginary world. And the other players take on roles, a thief, a fighter, a cleric, a wizard. And you go on these imaginary adventures where you defeat goblins and dragons and other evildoers and whatnot. But in the original red box, it came with a solo adventure. And it came with dice that you had to take a little wax crayon to color in the pips. And that solo adventure, I played that over and over and over and over again. I could almost memorize it. I absolutely loved it. And it got me into so many other things. It hooked me into Arthurian legend. It hooked me into J.R.R. Tolkien. It hooked me into so many different passions that I was able to expand with. And as I look at my life and what has happened since that day, she came home from the bookstore with that classic red rectangular box. My first job was at a game store. Some of you here may know the Game Preserve. Yeah. When I first started shopping at the Game Preserve, it was in Glendale Mall when that was really still a mall. And it moved from Glendale Mall to the Keystone Fashion Mall. And that's where I started working there. When the manager came up to me while I was shopping and said, "So you want a job here?" Like, okay, sure. It's my first job. Now they sit across the street from the fashion mall and do brisk business. Wonderful place. But that was my first job. I'm still friends with people that I worked with back then, over 30 years ago. My best friends now are friends that I met in high school and we gamed together and we're still close. My wife and I, our number one thing to do that I can talk about here is playing games. And we pass that along to our kids. So when I think about games as my number one hobby from my lifetime, it has enriched my past, it keeps my present active, and it has secured my future. So whatever it is that your hobby might be, I say to you, game on.
Yes.
Do you still have that bread box?
Man, I wish I did.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. You know, I tried to play games. When the games first came out, and they were telling kids, well, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, especially in school. And then the kids were drawn to it, and I was drawn to it. And I not only did I want them to play those games, I wanted them to learn how to make those games. And so I would do things like see if I could download GameStar Mechanic was a site of the day and get the kids to create a game. And then the people over in security and tech kept telling me I couldn't do it. I said, well, you need to figure out a way around this. But anyway, that was a great story. I see K Weeks.
Woo, the first time you came. Come on then.
This could be about phobias because I have fear of public speaking. So I don't even think I'll make it the 5 minutes. So it's funny because talking about hobbies, I don't really ever think that I have hobbies. And when we were walking in and we saw that, my friend had pointed out that I could point out all my hobby is collecting hobbies to do because I am ADHD. And so I have an ADHD tax that I pay all the time in regard to I take an interest in something and then I hyper focus on it and then I delve deep into it and then I'm one and done. So I have had a situation where I have had to, I've taken an interest in cooking and I've figured out like a gourmet meal and I've made like pesto from scratch and done an encrusted chicken and then served my family and they're like, this is amazing. And then I served a different set of family members and they're like, this is amazing. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. And I've had situation where Christmas and I was really broke. And so everybody got hand painted and organized stuff. And I had houses and I got super obsessed about the clay Christmas houses and making sure that every little tile and every little window, and they were like, this is so beautiful, you should do it again. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And one of the things that I have realized is that one of my hobbies, I guess, is that I like puzzles. And I realized that in puzzle in an abstract way, because I like figuring out stuff. I like creating stuff from scratch, figuring out how something is going to go from all of these things to combine into something. I have used that in situations of the crafting for friends. I work with animals and at one point I was with disaster rescue and when we were with Katrina and me being part of the medical team, it was like figuring out all this stuff and what you could use with what you had and puzzling it together and figuring out. And it's something that I have used with work and trying to figure those things out. But it always does come with an ADHD tax because of the fact that you get into those things and you get into all of this stuff and you buy all the supplies and then you do it once and you're done. I think that somebody would really benefit if they could rent out things to be able to rent something so that one and dones would not be investing so much money that they could not get back. If I was rich, it wouldn't be a problem. But because of the fact that it's not, it's like I would love woodworking. That would be amazing. That is kind of like my dream hobby to get a part of. But that is an expensive hobby. But yeah, so that's it for me.
Oh my. Good job.
That reminds me of another hobby. I took a stained glass class, and my object was to be able to replace the clear glass windows in my front door with stained glass creations. And it was a great class. I had a lot of fun. I still have all the tools and still have some of the glass. But I want you to know that the only thing I produced was a little sailboat that you could hang up in the window as a sun catcher. I gotta say, And then my nieces and nephews will come to my house and they will say to me, Auntie, you have too much stuff. That's what is my stuff, you know. And the worst thing in the world, like, I crochet and knit, and you can't start a new project because you don't remember where the last crochet needle was. You have to go out and buy some more. I see y'all looking around. You know who I'm talking about. Okay, Donna Jones.
That's just too damn tall. Time this up. Keep going for your brother. Anyway, I'm tired, which leaves me with a lot, and I do mean a lot of time on my hands. So I've decided that I'm going back to school. Yay. And I did. That's what happened. I've been going back to school. I have been going back to school since 2012, January 2012. I have been a student at Ivy Tech Community College. The sad part about this is it's mere 5 minutes from my house. So it doesn't take anything for me to get there. I get up, I dress, get my little stuff together for whatever it is I'm doing. My first degree, back to Ivy Tech, graphic design. Got an associate in applied science, School of Communication or Art Design at Ivy Tech. Okay, got that one. Now that summer, I got a job. I'm going to teach art to the boys and girls of the 38th Street Boys and Girls Club. Prayers for my previous self.
Yes.
Because those people, kindergarten through 18, by the time that little 8-week job was over, I wanted to line all those little people up and just shoot at me back. But it paid because it was like a job corps job. So I got like $1,200. How do I get like $1,200? I gotta go back to school. Okay. I'm gonna go get another degree. Guess what? General Studies. Now the thing is, there's a program at Ivy Tech called Senior Scholars. Once you get to be 60, you don't have to pay any tuition. And because I did not have an undergraduate degree, this is the really good part. I could apply for Pell Grants.
Yeah.
Free money.
Yeah.
You guys just take advantage of that. Oh, yeah. So I think presently now, I'm working on my 4th degree at Ivy Tech. I got a degree I didn't even know that they gave out. I kept getting these notices in my email. Are you going to be walking come June? You're going to be walking come June? No, I'm still working on a dumb degree. This time in fine arts. June comes and goes. I have a package in my mailbox. What the heck is this? It's from Ivy Tech. I open it up. It's a degree. Apparently, the state of Indiana has a degree called core curriculum. I have enough credits spread across 2.5 degrees to get that degree. And I'm still working on my fine arts degree. So that has become my hobby.
I admire you. I wanted to get a PhD, but what use will it be to me now? Let me reach in here and pull out another name. People are trying to escape. Don't leave us. Right now, I'm gonna judge if you're ready. I'm ready. You ready to go? Peg Black, come on.
Sorry. Ever let us get started? Okay. Looks like two people in my hair.
I think you wanna
I'll try to lose it.
take it off.
Can I get it off? I'm still gonna get it.
Let me help you.
Oh, wait a minute, can I do that?
Yeah.
Can I do that way?
Here.
That's time.
Yeah, I just don't wanna break it.
No, you won't work it.
I think that's okay if people can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear?
Okay. This is going to be sort of a snap off on a hobby that wasn't really a hobby to start with. It just sort of became one. I will show you the first sign of that. I am the very model of a modern major general. I remember we did that with the whole animal and I know the things that mean what, and I quote the prices door. Recognize it? I started to become crazy about gathering patter songs, which that is one of, from various Gilbert Sullivan shows and one or two others, such as Papa Papa Papageno, Papa Papa Papageno, Papa Papa Papageno. You guys recognize that one?
No.
It's from the opera The Magic Flute, and the Birdman's name is Papageno. So back to Gilbert and Sullivan, which has a ton of patter songs, and I thought, that'd be a fun thing to see if people knew the particular operas. So here, when you're lying awake with a dismal headache and reposes to boot by anxiety, I can see you may use any language you choose to indulge in without impropriety. Anybody recognize that one? Iolanthe. If you give me your attention, I will tell you what I am. I'm a genuine philanthropist. All other kinds are sham. Each a little act of nature and each social defect on my erring fellow creatures I endeavor to correct. Princess Ida. All right. One or two more, and I will let you. Thank you, sir. I just have fun doing this. Oh, okay. If you're anxious for to shine, you know artistic long. As a man of culture rare, you must get up all the germs of the transcendent doctor. They have plant them everywhere. Excuse me, I have to have a pose. Okay. All right. One differently. All right. Oh, now I can't think how it starts. Okay. That's from. Oh, I'm sorry. That's from the Gilbert Sullivan comic opera Patience. Some of those ones you never heard of. Okay. Never read them, but they're fun.
Yeah.
But they're fun. Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead. Oh, how does that start? Now, once I get started, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden, then I can't remember it. So that helps a lot of nothing. Okay. Since I'm going blank, maybe that's a good place to start.
You gotta be quick on your feet when you're up here. That was good, Peg. That was good. Okay, I don't know if there's anybody else, but I got one last name in my bucket, my lime green bucket. Normally I'd be asking 99 people if they got another story to tell, but I know better now. Christina Carr, this is your turn.
I hadn't intended to speak today, so clearly I am not dressed for the occasion. So I have had many of the hobbies that people have shared tonight. I have had the hobbies of collecting hobbies that I've never started. And I would say my most famous hobby is actually going for car rides. I grew up in a small town in southern Indiana and did everything to get out of my house. So as soon as I got my driver's license, I decided to figure out how fast you actually have to go to bottom out your car, like on the Dukes of Hazzard. How fast that you need to travel to get around combines without actually ending up in the cornfield where the combine was heading. So I did all of this, and then I went to college and had no car. And that sucked. So my second roommate, my sophomore year, thankfully had a car. And she did not want to be a student. So at 1 a.m, for an entire semester, at 1 a.m, we would leave in her car that her father had bought for her, not knowing what we would be doing with said car for 3 hours a night during an entire semester. So we learned all about Marion County in the dark. We learned about roads that did not exist because we made them up. Learned that if lights were coming at you from 3 lanes, you're probably going the wrong direction. That would be me driving during that time. I learned quickly where White Castles were located to be able to turn around really quickly when you're going the wrong direction. But of all the adventures that we had, my favorite was the parking situation. Because when you go out driving from 1 to 3, you never have to worry about parking when you get back on campus. And I went to Windy on the south side. Now, this was before it was reconstructed. And Hannah Avenue, when it rained, was also known as Lake Hannah Avenue because of the flooding situation. And one night we were out as we were, and we did not care what the weather was doing. And we were coming back to said campus at 4 a.m. It's raining. It's probably late November. I'm dressed about like this. And my friend was driving, and we go, and she's like, "Do you think we can make it through the river?" And I was like, "Yeah, we can do this." We didn't make it through the river. So we stalled out on Hannah Avenue at 4 a.m. And I opened the car door, and there was the water at the side of the door. And she looks at me and she's like, "What do we do? Do I leave my car here?" And I was like, "No, he's going to get towed. We don't have money. We're college kids. We'll park it." There's no parking on Hannah Avenue, by the way.
Yeah.
So she's like, "How do we do this?" As we're standing in the rain, and I'm like, "We push. That's what we're going to do." And she's like, "Do you know how far we're going to have to push this car?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we go up about a block. We're going to hang a right, go another block, hang another right, and we'll park behind the doors. I'll make it happen." Now, my friend and I are both idiots. Classified. So we start pushing. Now, I'm a little heavier than I am now. And I'm pretty guzzy. So I'm like, "You get the front part. I'm going to take the muscle because people think I'm a lesbian anyway. So why not?" I'm not. So we push. We take the first turn, we've got momentum, and we realize for the first time in our life, there's a hill there. So we make it up, we pass a smoker who's like, do you have a light in the middle of the rain for her cigarette? My friend's like, no. And we keep going. We turn the corner, we take out a mailbox. Yes. And we get all the way up behind the door. And she's like, there's one spot left, but we need to parallel park. Can you do this? I'm like, get in the car. I have learned that you can't manually parallel park in the rain behind UND's campus. And I still love driving to this day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Girl, you dangerous.
Yeah.
And I wrote as a third.
I'm assuming there are no more slips because people have been leaving the room discreetly. Let me remind you, our next story slam is at Aristocrat Pub and Restaurant at 5212 North College. And the topic is phobias. We will be at the Phoenix Theater Cultural Center Saturday, October 11th at 8 p.m. for Spooky Stories. And Frank Bazille's Emergent Stories, Aging Reimagined, featuring Brenda Johnson, will be November 9th at the Indiana History Center. Y'all were a mess. Okay. I enjoyed hearing these stories. They were all so good. And the problem with having so many great stories at the same time, it's hard to choose a winner. But I have faith that our judges will take care of that. Remember, Freetown Village celebrations, Conversations in Indiana's African American History, September 25th. That's tomorrow night, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Go online and register freetown.org. And it's at the Landmark Center. Doors open at 5:30. The event is free. The program begins at 6. There's also a live stream of this show. And Renee Thomas is the presenter, who will provide a historical overview of the remarkable African American experience at Purdue University from 1894 to 2021. You know, I watch football games. Professionals, non-professional. I was watching college. And I went to school in Iowa. And so Halliburton had just, gotten engaged with his girlfriend. They were in Ames, Iowa. Is it Iowa State that's there? Anyway, my school was about half an hour away. And I just learned, this many years old, that their stadium was named after the first African-American football player. And he had actually moved with his coach from Ohio to Iowa and had him playing. And some people didn't want to play with a black man on their football team. And he played, I forget which team he played, Michigan. I have to look it up. I don't want to malign Michigan. But nobody wanted to play him, so they attacked him on the football field. And he died from his injuries the next day.
Oh my God.
So the stadium is named after, I think his name was Trice. I can't remember his first name, but I was today years old, okay, when I found that out. There are so many stories that are being told and need to be told, and I've heard a lot of them here tonight. Y'all are a mess. That's all I gotta say. Our winners are,
Dun, 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 dun.
we do want you to come up and get your picture. Our third place winner is Sid. Our second place winner is Samantha. Our first place winner is Jen Clee. Now, do you know that our Story Slam winners are going to be on stage January 11th at the Indiana History Center? It's going to be the first time we've done some slam winners for our presentation. I can't wait to see what y'all do. Woo-wee. Any questions for me? Then it's time for y'all to go home.